Welcome to the first edition of the Team Sammy Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel DeVries, and today we are going to be talking about the NFL Draft. The NFL Draft, which starts, I don't know what time, like 8 maybe. If it is 8, it is 7.5 hours from now, and I will be bringing to the table my final mock draft going into the night. What I think is going to happen. Last year, my final mock, I had 5 correct picks, which sucks. I correctly had Bryce Young going to the Panthers at 1. I had C.J. Stroud going to the Texans at 2. I had Peter Skoronski going to the Titans at 11, I think. I had Jordan Addison going to the Vikings at 23. And I had Felix Onwudike Uzama going to the Chiefs at 31. But that doesn't matter. What matters is today's mock draft, which we are starting off 1-for-1 in the picks. I will cut off I'm guaranteeing that Caleb Williams is the first pick to the Chicago Bears. It's the chalk. Touted as a Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck type of generational quarterback. I don't know if I personally agree with that, but Caleb Williams, quarterback from USC, goes number 1 to Chicago. He will be in a very good situation with the receivers they have brought in, and maybe with what they do with pick 9, which I'm going to mock in just a minute. At pick 9, probably. Pick 2. The Washington Commanders on the board, traded away Sam Howell, really in desperate need of a quarterback. Drake May, quarterback out of North Carolina, is where I have the Commanders going. I don't buy into the Jaden Daniels hype. I'm pretty down on Jaden Daniels as going to be a successful NFL quarterback to begin with. That, and I think most of the Jaden Daniels, I think a lot of that stuff is just a bunch of smoke screens. If you listen to there was a meeting with a whole bunch of draft prospects with Washington, and Jaden Daniels apparently felt very negative at the end of that. This was about a week ago. And Drake May said it was one of the best experiences that he's had in his life. So, it's been May as the consensus number 2 up until probably 3 weeks ago. The last time we saw a quarterback kind of get top 5 hype just after the end of the season, it'd be like a Will Levis, Mac Jones situation. I'm not sure I see Jaden Daniels going at number 2. However, pick 3. I do have Jaden Daniels going to the New England Patriots. New England Patriots trading away Mac Jones for a 6th-round pick to the Jaguars. I think it was the 6th. It might have been a 7th. Obviously, that era is over. And when you have to bring in a rookie quarterback that's really got no help around him, which is the definition of the Patriots' skill position group at the moment. Might as well bring in a mobile guy, a guy who's going to be able to at least bring a second dimension with his legs, which is Jaden Daniels in many ways. Moving on, pick 4, I have the Arizona Cardinals taking Marvin Harrison Jr., who, in my opinion, I think Marvin Harrison will step into the NFL as already a top 20 receiver in the league as a rookie. We've seen the recent trend of year 1 wide receivers now instantly bringing production to the table where it did not always used to be like that. If you look anywhere from 5 years ago and before, it was year 2 receivers were bringing the big production. Now it's all about the year 1 guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, even Jordan Addison to an extent last year, and Addison still had to deal with Justin Jefferson for most of the season and T.J. Hawkinson for most of the season at that with the backup quarterback. Point is, Jordan Addison was good. But yeah, I would be very shocked if Marvin Harrison had anywhere under 1,200 yards as a rookie. He's instantly going to step in and be the alpha of an offense led by Kyler Murray, who's going to finally have an offseason full of actually working out as an NFL player, not having a knee injury, and hopefully not having played Call of Duty. Pick 5, I have the Chargers trading out with the Minnesota Vikings for them to select J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy going in the top 5. I don't know if I agree with it, but if there's a team that needs a quarterback desperately that still has a chance to contend, it would be the Minnesota Vikings. Almost all the other teams that need quarterbacks, I guess, other than Chicago, that need quarterbacks are teams that are not going to be looking to make even close to a playoff push in year one, such as Washington and New England. But, I mean, Minnesota's 2 years removed from a 13-win season, and they dropped their last 3 games of the year last season after starting at 7-7, right on the brink of the wild card. So I think McCarthy stepping into an offense with Jefferson and Jordan Addison with newly brought in Aaron Jones, I think it's a good situation for really any rookie quarterback to be in. At 6, I have the Giants going with Malik Neighbors. Skill position groups are terrible. They lost Saquon too. On top of it, they need any kind of anything to generate offense. Darren Waller's a shell of himself. Daniel Jones is awful. I don't have the Giants taking a quarterback here. I think with the contract situation with Jones, they stick with Daniel Jones for just for this year, and then they're able to cut him for not a lot after this year. I think that's what happens. I think New York ends up taking a quarterback in next year's draft. Pick 7, I have the Titans shoring up that offensive line with Joe Alt, tackle out of Notre Dame. Peter Skoronski drafted as a kind of like a tackle guard, kind of like a Graham Barton almost in this year's class. And they ended up playing Skoronski primarily on the interior. They already have, for the most part, their receivers covered with Hopkins and the new free agent they brought in. Why can't I think of it? Calvin Ridley. A lot of people would be taking a wide receiver here in mocks, like Roma Dunze, for example. I don't see it. I think the number one way to put Will Levis into the most ideal of situations would be to give him the most time possible, and Joe Alt is just all around the best tackle in the class. So at pick 8, this is really the first curveball of the draft, of my mock draft, in my opinion, and that is the Falcons selection of edge rusher Leatu Latu. So Latu, he had to medically retire from football a couple of years ago, and now he's fully cleared. He's easily the best edge rusher in the class, in my opinion, in raw talent and skill. I think that with an example of Tyree Wilson with a lot of medical concerns last year, and he still got picked at pick 7, I think there's no difference with Leatu Latu getting taken in the top 10 here by the Falcons. And I think that I think he'll end up being the best pass rusher in the class. But yeah, Latu to the Falcons at 8. Moving on to pick 9, I have the Chicago Bears taking Roma Dunze, wide receiver out of Washington. Chicago has brought in so many weapons. They already had DJ Moore from last year's trade with Carolina. They just brought in Keenan Allen. Cole Kmet is probably at this point a borderline top 10 tight end in the NFL. And what better to solidify the start of a new era in Chicago by equipping their number one overall quarterback immediately with a rookie wide receiver who is going to be able to grow right alongside Caleb, hopefully having equally successful careers for their sakes. Pick 10, I have the Jets, in my opinion, doing the smart thing, which is taking Talise Fuaga, or Fuanga, whatever the heck it is, tackle out of Oregon State, very solid right tackle, I think primarily playing on the right side. The Jets' offensive line was so bad last year. People love to slander Zach Wilson, and Zach Wilson does suck. He is awful. But he was made out to be even more awful than what he actually was because of how terrible that offensive line was. You look at a guy like Mekhi Becton, absolutely massive bust now looking back in time at what a terrible draft pick he was, partially due to injury, but I mean, even when he's on the field, he's looking like he's Evan Neal out there. And so I have the Jets passing on Brock Bowers, shoring up the offensive line for what will, in my opinion, be the final season for Aaron Rodgers, and in my opinion, being a season where the Jets still miss the playoffs in a talented AFC, and then having to completely start a rebuild starting next year because they've put themselves in football purgatory. Sorry, Jets. Pick 11, this pick was the Vikings, now belongs to the Chargers. I have them taking Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback out of Toledo. I just think that one of the things that Jim Harbaugh kind of really just established at Michigan from the beginning was just solid defensive back play, whether it's right now with Will Johnson or Jabril Peppers toward the beginning of his tenure, Jordan Lewis, guys like that. I just think that Harbaugh knows the importance of having just an absolute dog, dominant cornerback one to take out their opponent's most talented wide receiver, and I think that is Quinyon Mitchell, and I think that is exactly what the Chargers will think as well. Pick 12, I have the Broncos and the Raiders, or 12 and 13, Broncos and Raiders. I have neither of them taking a quarterback because Penix and Nix, neither one will go in the first round. We've seen in the past. Malik Willis, top 5 pick, went in the third, and then last year, Will Levis, top 10 pick, went at 34. But anyway, at 12, I have the Denver Broncos taking Dallas Turner, a little bit of a fall. The Dallas Turner is almost consensus, it feels like, going at 8 to Atlanta. Turner takes a bit of a fall, and I think the Broncos will snatch him up. When you're entering a sort of rebuild, which is where the Broncos are headed, just take the best player available. And I think at this point in time, the best defensive player on the clock would be Dallas Turner. I had the Chargers passing on Turner because even though they're aging out, Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa still make very, very solid edge rushers, plus the very great rookie play from Tuli Tuipulotu from last year. So I just think that the Chargers are clear on edge. Which is why I have Dallas Turner slipping one spot further down to the Broncos. Pick 13, I have the Raiders taking Terrion Arnold, cornerback out of Alabama, who really, in my opinion, is interchangeable with Quinyon Mitchell in terms of who might go first, who might go second. Again, no quarterback for the Raiders here. Teams, as of recent, NFL teams have started to learn, don't just reach for a quarterback if you desperately need one, because it really will not work out well. But the Raiders also they're desperate for talent really anywhere on the field, and I think Terrion Arnold will at least help the secondary, especially they did just lose Amik Robertson in the offseason as well. 14, I have the Saints with the selection of tackle out of Penn State, Olu Fashanu. There was the sudden retirement of James Hurst, meaning that, and plus the awful play of Trevor Penning, the Saints just need offensive line. Fashanu, I think, just an incredible pass protector. So I think that is where the Saints go from there. And pick 15 puts the Indianapolis Colts on the clock, and I think they go with Brock Bowers. In this situation of the mock, Brock Bowers fell to them, kind of fell into their lap almost. And Anthony Richardson, if he can stay healthy, is going to need as many playmakers around him as possible. Alec Pierce is nothing of a deep threat like what Indianapolis hoped he would be. There were some signs of life with Josh Downs as a rookie, but he really did nothing over the second half of the year. He had a quick little about 4-week spurt of showing out on the field. And then, of course, the newly extended Michael Pittman Jr., but really they lack one more playmaker through the air, which is why I have them taking Brock Bowers. At 16, I have the Seattle Seahawks taking Byron Murphy, the defensive lineman out of Texas, interior defensive lineman. Last year, I had the Seahawks mocked to take Jalen Carter at 5. Didn't happen. Devin Witherspoon, elite, future elite cornerback, great player as a rookie. Retroactively, I still think the Seahawks, going back in time, would take Jalen Carter at 5, and I think they are not going to avoid potentially missing out on a great interior defensive lineman. We know that they've already tried to address that position when they traded at the midseason for Leonard Williams. Didn't really amount to much, but Byron Murphy out of Texas going to the Seahawks at 16. So 17, I have the Jaguars. Commonly in some of my mocks in the past have them trading out if a team wants to move up and take a wide receiver. I have them sticking and picking Jared Verse, edge rusher out of Florida State. Verse, who has he's kind of slowly fallen down draft boards a little bit over the past couple of weeks. But I think that another guy to be rushing the passer with former number 1 overall pick Trayvon Walker. I think that's just the best place for the Jaguars to attack and hopefully not have a fall off of the century like they did last season in the back half of the year. Pick 18, I've got the Bengals going with J.C. Latham, tackle out of Alabama. They lost Jonah Williams. Jonah Williams was average to begin with. Really no deep explanation here. Bengals helping the offensive line, helping out Joe Burrow. Hopefully he won't get hurt this year. In my opinion, I think Joe Burrow has a very great chance to win the MVP this year if he can stay on the field. But yeah, J.C. Latham coming in at pick 18 to Cincinnati. Pick 19, the Rams. I really struggled with who to take here, so I just went with kind of like the when in doubt approach. When in doubt, take offensive line. You never can have enough offensive linemen on a team. So I have the Rams taking Troy Fautanu, tackle from Washington, just part of that excellent national runner-up Washington team we saw from last year. The Rams did help their offensive line in free agency by picking up Jonah Jackson, but he is obviously more of he's an interior offensive lineman, great in the run game. But Troy Fautanu will hopefully buy Matthew Stafford some more time. And really, if you look at this team, I think that obviously they got the receivers covered with Kupp and Nakua. Kyron Williams, excellent season last year. The only other place that I really was thinking for the Rams to go would have been Byron Murphy if he fell, but division rival Seahawks scooped him up. Pick 20. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers helping out Russell Wilson / Justin Fields by taking the all-around utility offensive lineman in Graham Barton, one of my favorite players in the class, who can play. You can stick him anywhere on the offensive line, and he will do an excellent job of that. Again, really, you don't need, or you can never have enough offensive linemen. I think the Steelers go with Graham Barton. Pick 21, the Dolphins. I have them taking Amarius Mims, tackle out of Georgia. Bit of a confusing extension with Austin Jackson, in my opinion, confusing extension. Tua, you're always going to have to protect him. He's always just one big hit away from seizing up, pretty much, like we saw happen. Which obviously very terrible thing when this stuff has happened to Tua in the past. But gotta protect him as much as possible. Amarius Mims, tackle out of Georgia. The pick 22. I do not have a Georgia player going to Philadelphia. I have them taking cornerback Nate Wiggins, who is very sticky in coverage, lacks really physicality, tackling, which is, in my opinion, the reason why he's going to the 20s. I would have had him really right up there with Mitchell and Arnold if he was really polished in run defense, which he is not. Darius Slay Jr. is aging out for Philly. Still, obviously, a very good player. I'm just saying that he's not going to be around forever. I think he's like 33 years old at this point. And the Eagles' defense was awful, especially in the second half of last year. Maybe because Matt Patricia was calling the plays. I don't know. Pick 23, I have the Chargers doing their best to replace the likes of Mike Williams and Keenan Allen by taking Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver out of LSU, to go with the definition of average Joshua Palmer and the dying asset that is Quentin Johnston. Which Brian Thomas, honestly, he reminds me a lot of Quentin Johnston, just watching the tape on Brian Thomas. Big time basket catcher, does not catch with his hands really too much at all. I don't see it really with Brian Thomas turning into a dog, but I think that the Chargers will have to address skill position early, whether that ends up being a running back. Running back wouldn't be in the first, obviously, but addressing any sort of playmaker to help out Justin Herbert. So Brian Thomas Jr. Pick 24, I have the Cowboys taking an inside linebacker in Peyton Wilson. I've seen Peyton Wilson linked to Dallas. Dallas has a tendency of kind of taking players that seem to have almost like a second round-ish caliber touted to them. Dallas really has a tendency of taking those guys up in the first, other than maybe CeeDee Lamb, who just fell into their lap, and Micah Parsons as well. But guys like Mozzie Smith last year, Leighton Vander Esch from a number of years ago. But Dallas has been linked to Peyton Wilson, and I think that another interior inside linebacker will do Dallas's defense good. Pick 25 for the Packers, I have the chalk of Cooper DeJean, cornerback out of Iowa. Eric Stokes is long gone. Waste of a first-round pick from a couple of years ago. Honestly, other than that, the Packers have been just elite at drafting. But Cooper DeJean to go along with Jair Alexander, and then the new signing this offseason of Xavier McKinney, I think will make a pretty scary secondary in Green Bay. 26, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback out of Alabama. They just lost Carlton Davis to the Lions in a trade. So really helping that secondary is probably the best thing they could do at this point. So Kool-Aid McKinstry being the pick. Arizona Cardinals at pick 27. I have them going with Braden Fisk, a player that has not really been mocked in the first very much, but the dude is an absolute mauler. He's a dog. Braden Fisk, interior defensive lineman, if I didn't say that, from Florida State. Formerly of, I think it was Western Michigan, which is really why he did not get too much collegiate attention because he was not doing things at a very big school. But the dude is just, he plays angry. He's just an absolute dog. I think he will end up being a star in the NFL. And the Cardinals, really, you can't point to the Cardinals and say, like, that's their guy on defense who's going to be reckless in the trenches, which is why I think Braden Fisk to Arizona makes sense, and I think it will work out for them. The Bills, I originally had them taking Tyler Nubin out of Minnesota, a safety, and then really I was thinking there's no way they can leave the first round without having taken a receiver with everything that they've lost. You cannot have Curtis Samuel going out there as your number one, who I think at this point is their number one. I have them taking Troy Franklin, wide receiver out of Oregon. I don't trust Adonai Mitchell. I think he will fail as a pro. I don't trust Xavier Worthy. I don't think the BMI works for somebody who does not have such a large pedigree like a Jordan Addison had or a Devontae Smith had, which is why I don't have either of those guys going. Ladd McConkey, don't get the hype. Don't see why the guy's good, really, at all, or at least will translate to the NFL, that is. So I think Troy Franklin is going to be a great player in the NFL, and I think he will really help out Josh Allen in Buffalo, them aiming for, I think, what would be their fifth straight AFC East title, I think, if they can win it this year. 29, I have the Detroit Lions taking edge rusher out of Missouri, Darius Robinson. He really fits the Lions' culture in terms of just being a gritty, tough, mauler type of guy. They need help in the pass rush. They addressed the cornerback position, their secondary in the offseason with the additions of Carlton Davis and Amik Robertson. They didn't really get themselves a bona fide number one, which is why I think there's an outside chance that the Lions move into the top 15 out of nowhere and take a Terrion Arnold or a Quinion Mitchell if either of those guys happen to fall past where I think they will end up. But if they do not move up the Lions, I think they will stick at 29 and just take a guy who's going to help out Aiden Hutchinson. With the signing of DJ Reader, they combined with Lee McNeil, they've got the interior of their defensive line really figured out. But Darius Robinson, I think, will be a very solid addition off the edge for Detroit at 29. At 30, I have the Ravens taking Tyler Guyton, tackle out of Oklahoma. The Ravens confusingly re-signed Rashad Bateman to a 2-year deal, and because of that caused me to pivot my original pick of the Ravens taking a receiver to going offensive line, because, again, you can never have enough offensive linemen. Does the signing of Rashad Bateman mean that there's no chance for the Ravens to take a receiver here? No. I just think that it lessens the chance of that, so I pivoted. At 31, I have the San Francisco 49ers taking otherwise known as Chop Robinson, the edge rusher out of Penn State. Very good player in the Big Ten, and the Chase Young edition for San Francisco was only for half the season. That midseason move that they made with Washington, Young then signed to New Orleans. Young really would dog out on the field, just opt out of plays almost at times in San Francisco. Chop is not going to do that. I think he will be a very solid addition to go along to what is already a ferocious San Francisco defense. And then finally, the last pick in the first round, everybody is screaming Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy. Those guys suck. And well, I think the Chiefs will take a receiver. I really do think they will. Out of spite, I will not be giving them a receiver because I am anti all the receivers who are left at this point. I have them taking Kingsley Suamataia, tackle out of BYU, because why not? Thank you for joining what ended up being a very long edition of the Team Sammy podcast. I will be uploading this as soon as I can. Remember, guys, hit that like button down below. Comment any comments you have. My biggest blunders, my favorite picks that you guys have. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload of the cast or any of the other things I do on my sorry channel. Thank you. So long. Peace out. Kanye 2024. Good night.